For fuck's sake, Town, not again. Here's the intro.
For me, it's the people and the spirit of the people as well.
I love this town. I love this town. I love this town. You know what I love about this town is actually you. Everyone in it has got this massive soul.
We're Luton people, and that's what we care about.
Hello everyone, welcome along to another episode of the Luton Town Supporters Trust podcast, the longest running Luton Town podcast, which is shortlisted for the Best Football League podcast in this year's Football Content Awards. And this season we're sponsored by Solid, providing opportunities, provisions and assistance so our academy can fulfil their potential. We are covering, don't even know if I can say this, Middlesbrough 5, Luton Town 1, an absolute dreadful afternoon at the office for Luton Town on Saturday, and one where repercussions may come as a result. And alongside me to look back on the afternoon, and we will go through the game, because if we don't, the people who need to be called out won't be called out. So we will go through the game. It's myself and as the Lutonian journalist James Cunliffe, as always. And that's right, Jimbo, isn't it? People need to be called out for that performance yesterday, or lack of performance, whatever you want, whatever word you want to use to describe it. People need to be called out for that.
And there was a lot wrong, really. And, when we've talked about green shoots of recovery and things starting to turn, it was straight back to square one, wasn't it?
Yeah, it really was. First thing to say is the 700 or 800 Luton fans who were there yesterday, I was one of them. Many of you saw me. Lots of you came up and made contact with me and things like that. We all deserve a hell of a lot more than what we got yesterday. That goes without saying, but well done to every one of you. We all made a significant sacrifice of some kind yesterday, whether it's financially, the time and everything else, and we were not rewarded with anything like what we should have been. We'll discuss the game, we'll discuss what happens next and things like that, but we're also going to highlight why this is not all on the manager. And I think it's right to do that, because Rob's rightly, or not rightly, being criticised on social media. But if you pin all the blame on him, people are getting away with murder. And yesterday there was some murder taking place. We knew we were going to have team changes. We said it in the preview. The one thing that was always going to happen was we were going to learn from that Coventry debacle, and we were not going to go down that route again. Rob doubled down and confirmed it in the pre-match press conference, the thoughts of which we added into that preview once it had taken place. 5 changes in total. 4 of them probably kind of made sense before the game without any sort of explanation. The one that didn't maybe was Corley Woodrow coming in for Jacob Brown. I suspect it was purely because he wanted people who were good on the football to use the football and things like that. But we didn't lose 5-1 yesterday because of 5 team changes. If you look at the start of the game, and there's a kind of statistic or sort of a piece of analysis that the FootMob site use that shows the momentum of a game. And for the first half an hour, i.e. right up to the first goal, it's pretty much all Luton. Okay, you could rightly say we didn't create a massive amount, but we're the away side here. We're not going to go there and create 15, 20 chances. Never going to happen. But we were comfortable. I wasn't sitting there thinking, Middlesbrough are going to score in a minute. Look out. In fact, if someone was going to score, it was going to be us. We had the Woodrow shot that was straight at the keeper. The good Lord only knows why he's punched that out. If my keeper's punching that out, he ain't my goalkeeper for very much longer. That's literally straight at him. But it was a good effort. We had the one where I think it was Hashi fed Eli inside the box, who laid it off to Baptiste, who for some reason wants to take on 2 or 3 men before he gets a shot away. Again, we're away from home. Put your foot through it. And we have the Liam Walsh one where you've only got to look at the reaction to him after he hit it. He knew he should have scored, or at least put it on target. Had he have put it on target, it would have been in the back of the net. At this point, half an hour in, this is a solid away performance. There's no sort of trouble the other way. We're in complete control of the situation. The tactical changes aren't not working by any stretch of the imagination. But then this team, as we've seen so often in 2024, whoever the 11 on the pitch are, however their energy levels are and their injury status is, This team seemed to get a kick out of imploding by their own doing, not by anything that the opposition do. A simple set-piece goal. Piss simple set-piece goal. Geezer runs off of the goalkeeper, straight past Elijah. Now, I don't expect Elijah to go with him because his job is purely cut out the cross on the front post. However, someone has to appreciate that cross is no longer coming in. This guy is not running to the front post as a decoy or anything like that. He is running to the front post because this is a training ground move. Wake up at that point. Nobody wakes up. It's Ben Doak, isn't it? The Liverpool loanee who absolutely tore us a new arsehole. Hey, a winger tearing us a new arsehole. Yeah, we've been here before as well, haven't we? And every time, seemingly, you take Amari Bell and or Reece Burke out of our back three, it just falls to pieces. It's ridiculous how often this happens. I digress. He flicks it to the edge of the box. Now, Liam Walsh, I don't know, he's in a daydream. He's not picking up his man on the edge of the box. I can't even pronounce the geezer's name. Geezer runs onto it. He curls it in the top corner. However, we've been full of praise for Tom Holmes, right? Tom Holmes kind of closes the shot down and then turns his fucking back on the shot. And what happens? He curls the ball exactly where Tom Holmes has just turned his back from, into the top corner. Now, I don't care if you're going to get hit with a football and it's going to hurt you for 5 minutes. Your job is to put your fucking body in front of that ball and make sure it does not get into the back of our net. And once you've done that, you can pick Liam Walsh up by the scruff of the neck and shake him until he wakes up. But get the ball away from our sodding goal, because we concede so many goals from players turning their back that I'm getting well and truly miffed with it when we're paying 32 quid, Jimbo, which is not cheap, when I'm getting up and many around us, we're getting up at 5 a.m. We're leaving our houses at 6 a.m. to go and watch that. The very least you can fucking well do is put your body in front of a ball and make sure it does not go in your net. It's inexcusable to not do that.
We can't say it any more eloquently than you have, Kev.
And I apologise for my language.
It's basic defending stuff. You get told that when you're a kid. Don't turn your back, don't you? Don't turn your back. Don't close your eyes when you're heading the ball. All these things, basic stuff. And it seems time and again that getting undone by the basics. We used to be so solid at set pieces and used to be a threat at the other end. Now that's sort of started to come together in the previous weeks. But it just seems like it's jigsaw time, isn't it, in our own penalty box?
Yeah, it does. What I'm about to say, I really, really don't want to say as a Luton fan. But we're in white shirts there. And for the next 20 minutes, we waved a white flag. We surrendered. Or that was the impression that I got. Too many players on that pitch just gave in. That was it. 1-0 down. 1-0 down. We were 1-0 down last weekend against West Brom. Stuck in it and got something out of the game. We're not dead at 1-0. And we've given them a mighty leg up, and they don't need a leg up. I explained all of their attacking output in the preview podcast. The numbers were there. It was all there. And if I know the numbers, I'm sure hell the players that are on the pitch know all about them. We waved a white flag, Jimbo, and they don't have to look down onto their shirts. There's a red poppy on their shirts. Before the game, there was a minute's silence for people who genuinely sacrificed their lives so that they can have the luxury of kicking a bag of air around for 90 minutes. The very least you can do is put up some sodding fight. Least wherever in the country we were playing yesterday, just so happens to be it's the second longest trip of the season. That was inexcusable. Inexcusable. Now, people can blame Rob all they like for this. All they like. But every single person on that pitch has the right to fight. Whatever the tactics are that they're sent out with, whatever positions they are that they're put out, the very least you as an individual can do is go out there and fight, and you do not surrender. And you do not surrender in the way that they surrendered for that 20 minutes.
Totally agree. A very pertinent example there, isn't it? I mean, totally different things. It's football's a game, but yeah, if you're not doing those basics, not what's that phrase? Hard work outranks talent when talent doesn't work hard.
The phrase that was pinned to our dressing room wall from the John Steele days right the way through. The one that's rammed down their throats every time they play a home game. That statement, I mean...
That's just the very least that football fans, not let alone Luton fans, football fans expect to work hard. It's a very we talk about it all the time in English football. Players talk about it. Oh, we've got to go and work hard, blah, blah, blah. Work hard, work hard. I saw once this question put to a German pundit. It might have been Dietmar Hamann. Excuse me if it's not. Where he just said, it's a very strange concept you keep talking about. It's just that is the baseline in Germany. We don't talk about it. That's what you do. Work hard. And when you don't, and we don't put the blocks in, you don't track your men, you don't put your body on the line sometimes, really dig in.
If Luton lose a game doing that,
exactly,
that's fine.
But
None of us expect Luton not to lose games of football. I shouldn't have to sit on a podcast and tell professional footballers that there's ways to lose. And they probably didn't go out there with the intention of doing it. But the simple fact is they have done it, and they've done it too often in 15 games this season. And yeah, there was a lot of mitigating circumstances and we were outclassed last season, but they did it last season two or three times as well. It's not good enough. Now, if you don't want to play for this football club, just tell the manager and fuck off, because we don't need it. It's not any use to us now. There are people there that clearly think that they're above Luton Town, just by the virtue of the fact that they regularly, or too often, should I say, don't put in the required shift. And we're going to come on to a serious protagonist shortly again. I don't want to dig people out, but at the same time, I've had enough of paying over the odds for people to just not do the basics of their job. The second goal, I mean, was Finn Azaz invisible? Because there was no one within 20 yards of him all the time. He plays a lovely ball over to Latte Laf. It is a really nice ball. I've no idea why Mengi's dropped 10 yards behind the other two central defenders. Just stay in line and he's offside. Job done. We're still 1-0, but for some reason he tracks him back. Probably thinking about his latest vlog or whatever it is. Gets turned inside. Really good piece of skill. But come on, for crying out loud. Show something, make him do. If you drop 10 yards behind your defenders and he's gone and got the ball, at least force him away from goal. Again, basic defending. Brilliant bit of skill. I'm not taking it away from him. Their front four were very, very good. As every bit as bad as we were defensively, their front four was sensational. Once he's turned inside, it's a simple finish, 2-0. And from there, it became damage limitation, and we couldn't even do that.
Yeah, it just seemed a bit flat-footed, really, because he goes to pass him far too easy. Fair play to the guy, good bit of skill, and a good finish. You don't see that from Luton players, do you? That's the thing.
They've got to beat the man twice, 3 times before they even shoot.
It's the thing. You don't see that sharpness, and that's a problem. But that's at the other end. But I mean, well, even in that end, even that incident, it wasn't sharp enough to even be close to throwing a leg out to block, And yeah, it's at that point, you're like, it was bad. But you get into half time, and then reset. What happened after half time? It's even worse.
We went and got another white flag. That's what happened at half time. Because, I mean, Amari Bell's been given the runaround by Ben Doak. He's not fit, Amari Bell. It probably was the right thing to do to withdraw him. I'm only assuming that he was withdrawn because of the injury status and everything else. I suppose if you want to question Robbie's throwing Hashi under the bus, sticking him that side when Moses played that side against West Brom when Alfie wasn't fit. And at least Moses could have matched Doak pace for pace, even if he couldn't match him for defensive ability. That might have been something. Goal 3. Again, we're in absolute control of the situation. McGuinness is bringing the ball out of defence. He's challenged, not in any particular way or anything like that, but someone gets a bit physical with him, a bit tough. Might have held on to him. At the time I thought it was a foul. I have seen it back. Soft if it was given a foul. Weak. That's what it was. Weak. But he plays for the free kick. He loses the ball. And the next thing you know, one pass has just put Doak in down the right-hand side. Azaz is screaming for it so far that it's at the other end, but we can hear him in the away end. Doak rolls him in. Azaz finds the top corner. No, don't worry about tracking the run of Azaz. Just leave him into the centre of the box. No one around him. Top corner, 3-0. Let's go home.
Fair play to you boys that all stayed. if it felt like game over at the break, but there was still a chance at that point, it was doubly bad, triply bad, let's be honest. Yeah, I mean, we haven't even spoken about the fourth goal, but all four, the first
we'll
four
come
ones,
on to the fourth goal because
they're just awful mistakes, awful mistakes that, again, it's basics. And we talked up these players in the last few weeks, and that was right then. At that stage, it was right. And if it's right then to talk them up about what they were doing then, in this game, no one's come out of it with any credit. Well, I think one person has.
Yeah.
We'll come to that.
Yeah, we will. 3-0, we do finally get a chance. Chong, who was an absolute disgrace in the first half. Yet again, he's gone into that stupid mode of his where he thinks every time he's blown on, he gets a free kick. We need to be physical. If this team is going to... let's forget top six, right? Regardless of the fact of the table. If this team is going to become a team that Luton fans can get behind again, it needs to start getting physical and start getting physical bloody quickly. And Chong wasn't it. I don't know if someone gave him a kick up the arse at half time. I hope they did. But anyway, a 3-0 down. He's gone on a 60-yard run on the outside. He's put a lovely ball over. Corley Woodrow's had a brilliant shot. He's got a score, to be quite honest with you, but at least he's forced the keeper to make a save. It's a half-decent save. Had it gone in, who knows? I think it would have only delayed the inevitable, but at least it would have delayed the inevitable. Anyway, from the ensuing move, they put together a 10 or 15 pass move. Ball makes its way to Azaz in the centre of the park. Yet again, no one within 30 yards of the bloke. I mean, he's ripped us a new arsehole for the last half an hour, but don't worry about it. Just leave him. Let him keep on doing it. It's absolutely fine. It's so bloody obvious it was untrue. I mean, I don't care about the manager on the sideline. Where is someone's personal pride to say, you are starting to get right on my tits here, I am going to stop you from playing football? Not anyone. I think Liam Walsh in the first half tried to maim him, didn't he, with a challenge, which seemed to go unpunished by the referee. Seconds after, Shandon Baptiste made a brilliant tackle and did get punished, but I mean, that's by the by anyway. Anyway, as he's played the pass through to Latte Laff. Latte Laff hasn't even got the ball. Mark McGuinness is in complete control of the situation. Just be physical, be strong, put your body between him and the ball. I know your keeper doesn't help you out because he's fucking glued to his goal line, but at the very least, you can swing your foot at it and hack it somewhere here, there, or the other. For some god unknown reason, he stops, then realises that the geezer's on his shoulder, tries to put a piss poor sliding tackle back to Kaminsky that doesn't even get anywhere near. Still, Kaminsky's not coming for a ball. There was enough time for him to come take man, ball and everything else out like he did at Portsmouth. Stood still, waited for Latte Laff to pass the ball around him, and then I think it was Doak, wasn't it, on his shoulder. He gets a simple tap in. Weak, piss poor, terrible defending.
It really is.
From a bloke who has got previous. Now, he was really, really good against West Brom. He was really, really good against Cardiff. I called him out after the Plymouth game for that terrible way he tried to block that third goal. And yesterday afternoon, he doubled down. You're in control of the situation, man. Be strong. We haven't brought you to bloody be weak and fade away when someone's somewhere near you. You are the man in the middle of that defence who is supposed to be the dominant force, and you were weak.
And I thought we'd got past this. Thought we'd got over that particular speed bump because he was good in the last. Well, he's been good in the last 4 home games, really. But yeah, particularly the other night against Cardiff, very good. But these are mistakes that were dogging him in the early part of the season, and maybe you could say, new team, new surroundings, maybe an injury to the ankle. Who knows if it happened before then, but it certainly happened at the last international break. You know, these sorts of things you can accept, but when you've got over that and played so well, how does that basic bit of defending, it just seems so obvious. Swipe the ball away, kick it, clear it anywhere. And he's just almost fallen over. And I've watched it numerous times. I don't understand how the mechanics of that even work.
Like I said, it was just a surrender. It was we're not up for this today. Surrender. Straight up surrender. Rob, to be fair to him, he's making changes. He's made 5 changes. Finally, Nakamba's come on. Therein lies a question of Rob, right? This really is not all on Rob. There were people in the stands yesterday quite rightly calling for Edwards to sort it out. Yesterday, the players threw him right well and truly under a bus. But to be fair to Rob, one of his changes was Jordan Clark coming on. We're not going to have him for the whole game because he's got booked. He's suspended. But he parted with a goal. I think the goalkeeper's going to be a bit cheesed off that he's conceded that because it was straight at him and for some reason he pushed it in the back of his net. But at least we've had a shot on goal. At least we've scored. At least those 700-800 Luton fans, those of us that went, had something to cheer on the day. I mean, hell, really didn't make me feel any better, as you probably gather from the first 20 minutes of this podcast, but it's something.
Yeah. I think even the goal, the Clark goal, he's got it in eventually, and maybe the goalkeeper should.
He's turned into a defender, hasn't he, or tried to?
But I think it speaks to the lack of confidence all over the place because he's trapped the ball, and I hate modern footballers that do this. They trap it with their studs and push it forward. 2 extra touches and then a shot, when it should just be boom, straight away, before the defenders even get close to him. Yeah, in the end, you can't criticise the fact he scored a goal, but I think that small movement shows something about where the confidence is for these players.
And while that was good from Clark, goal 5 isn't. To be fair, before we pick the bones out of goal 5, Finnis has hands up. That was way too good for us, and that strike just capped off the best performance against us this season by a countryman. I thought Haji Wright was good for Coventry. This geezer was a major elevation. I mean, it was helped by the fact that no one seemed to want to be within 20 yards of him at any stage. So they throw the ball to Azaz, goes back to Aylin. He loops it over Victor Moses. One of the fellas who's come on lays it off to Azaz on the corner of the penalty box. It looked to me pretty obvious that he fancied his chances and he was always going to curl a shot. Of course, Jordan Clark has to be the nearest one to him. Turns his back, raises his right leg as he's doing it. This is a good block. No, it's not. Absolutely weak once again. Ball goes straight over that dangled foot. Kaminsky's got no chance. To be fair, apart from the 4th one, you can't blame Kaminsky for any of these goals. Again, it's not a grenade. It's not a bomb. Might hurt you for a couple of minutes, but guess what? There's a massage coming for you after the game and they'll rub it down. It'll make you feel better. And if it doesn't, well, your pay packet certainly will do. Get your ass in front of the ball and stop it going to our goal. Now, the game was done and dusted, but was something significant to take place by 1 goal this season? And piss poor bits of defending like that are what cost us. You just don't know down the line. This league is always settled somewhere along the line, whether it's top, middle or bottom by goal difference. So I sound like Michael Barrymore and Strike It Lucky then, didn't I? Get in front of him and stop, especially having just witnessed what you would have sat on the bench and witnessed. Get in front of him and stop that bloody shot going anywhere near our goal.
We're just repeating the same points in different moments of the game, really, aren't we? Because
I don't care what position you play, Jimbo. You know the guy's shooting. He's opened his body up to shoot. It is your duty in this team and in any team that you play in. Once he's opened his body up to shoot, it is your duty to make that shot as hard as possible to get to the goal. Not fucking cower out of the way and stick your foot up and hope it hits it, which he did. Whose winner was it? Sunderland's winner earlier on in the season when the geezer ghosted past him and put it in the bottom corner. It happens too bloody often, and it's the same people that are doing it. Now, if you're not going to learn, and Rob keeps on coming out in press conferences, doesn't he, and saying we need to learn from our mistakes. Rob, wake up, man. They're not learning. The only way you're going to get them to learn is pick them up, hook them out, and get someone in who will do that.
This is not all on Rob, but if there's some things that are, perhaps, it's that he's
too loyal.
Too much faith in certain players. And when it's not particularly going well, maybe seeing other things, but from what we see, these mistakes keep happening. We're seeing it time and again. And we're all bored of it. We're bored of it.
I sure as hell am. That is for sure. Yeah, we did not lose 5-1 yesterday because of Rob's team selection or Rob's tactics. Look, everyone who's watched every single podcast this season will know I hate this back 5 with an absolute passion, because every time we play a back 5 and we come up against a team with 2 lively wingers, we're fucked. Every single time. Burnley at the start of the season. Collie Osho and the geezer who went to Tottenham, Odebert, absolutely ruined us. Sunderland, the 2 wingers, absolutely ruined us. Yesterday, the 2 wingers. However many times in the Premier League, look, we've seen it, we've done it. It's every time. And for some reason, whenever Reece Burke and Amari Bell are not in the centre of that defence, the three that are just turn into absolute fucking under 6 schoolboys. I understand that people in the stands yesterday wanted to take their frustrations out on people. There were people in front of me, Jimbo, and I didn't like this, shouting at Rob Edwards, giving him wanker signs, shouting that he's a wanker and things like this. No, this man deserves a bit more respect than that. Even if you hold him responsible, he's a human being. A broken human being at that, and he can tell me and tell you in your press conferences, stop looking at me, I'm fine, blah 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 blah. We've got eyes, he's not. He looks shattered. He looks like a geezer who hasn't slept for a month, and believe me, having done these podcasts every day of the week, I know what it means not to have slept for a month. He looks like a guy who has got the weight of the world on his shoulders. But even through all of that, he's also the guy who allowed us to live our dreams of watching Premier League football. He gave us that day at Wembley. Criticise him if you wish, but there's no need to get personal and call him personal names like that. And they were close enough that he heard it, and I didn't like that. As I say, criticise him, sort it out, Edwards, and things like that.
Yeah.
But don't get personal.
That is the one thing that I can't get behind at all. I find it unbelievable how you can go from singing Super Robbie Edwards and loving the guy to then calling him names like that. I think we're talking about it in a Luton context. I think it's a wider societal problem, a complete lack of empathy for people, a complete hostile desire to just vent your spleen at somebody. And I just can't get behind that at all. And I'm not saying you can't criticise, but do it constructively. And calling somebody a name like that when they've done, like you say, given us the greatest day in our lifetime, watching football and taking us to the promised land. No, I'm not having that. And I don't know anyone. I don't personally know anyone that does that. So who are these people that are doing that? Are they new fans? Is it the younger generation? If it's the younger generation, that's a problem, because who's teaching them a better way? I don't know the answer, but it saddens me, really, really saddens me that we're in this position. And I'm not talking just about Luton here, that we're in a position in the world where everything's so, horrific. You have to just go to the nth degree. I don't know the answers, but I'm so saddened by it. I'm almost speechless by it. I don't know where to go with that. How do you change people's minds like that? You can put it into any other context you like. We've just had what happened across the pond, whether you like that or not. It's almost defies, belief, but it happened. And I don't know why I'm bringing that into it. It's just, it happened in the same week, but it really, really knocks your confidence in humanity, that.
And do you know what it really does? It excuses the people who are responsible for what we saw yesterday. It's not all Edwards. I can't highlight this enough. The first half an hour, what do you say as an away fan and as an away manager? The first half an hour, keep it tight, 15 or 20 minutes, silence the crowd. Okay, we didn't actually do that. To be fair, their crowd was quite noisy for 12:30. Don't know what the fuck they'd been up to be that noisy. But, stay in the game. Don't do anything stupid. Get a foothold in the game. Blah, 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 blah. You hear it all the time when managers do their pre-match interviews on TV. And we've done it. And then they switch off at a set piece. And then they turn their back at a set piece. And then it's in the top corner. And then they disintegrate. They give in. They're weak. That's not the manager. Okay, the manager can or should be doing his best to get it out of them. But that comes from within. That comes from right here. That comes from a will to not want to lose. From a will to make sure that if we lose, it's not on me. If it's on my teammate, well, I can't do nothing about my teammate. But what I can do is make sure that my job is being done to the best of my ability. No one did that. Not enough people did that yesterday. The only person, you referenced it earlier, who come out of it, we didn't actually say the name, but I suspect you means Carlton Morris.
Yeah, I did. Yeah.
Because this was so bad yesterday, and I still think the Sheffield United game was more worrying from a overall perspective, because we were in the game for 30 minutes yesterday. We weren't in the game for 30 seconds at Sheffield United. But they were taking the piss. They were taking the absolute piss. Now, this is a side who I referenced before the game. They're 8th in the league. They had 18 goals from 14 games. They were not free scoring. They were struggling. I saw a couple of Middlesbrough fans on my way in, and they were genuinely nervous about what they were about to witness, having lost 3-0 at home to Coventry last week. I was like, lads, no need to be nervous. They were taking the piss. They were passing it around themselves. It was like, you know, when you was at school and there's 2 or 3 years of you in the same playground, and the bigger boys were playing football and they weren't going to let the little boys go and get the ball and have a touch of the ball. That's what it was like, right? And Morris, thankfully, finally came off the bench. He said, you know what, fuck this, and ploughed into one of them. Probably could have possibly been sent off, from what I understand. Only got a yellow card. But do you know what? Thank fuck someone had it within them to say, no, we are not having any of this anymore. He now needs to lead more people into battle like that, because I can't watch that again, Jimbo. Cannot watch that again.
Rightly or wrongly, as to the challenge, that is the desire and the passion and the heart that people want to see. And if there were more of him doing that on Saturday, then maybe it wouldn't have got that bad. You know, maybe they'd have still lost. But like you say, you can lose football matches if you put everything out there, leave it all out there. But they didn't. And, you know, Carlton's the captain. You know, very respected figure, obviously didn't start. So if that's the case, then somebody else needs to take that mantle. Now, we're told all the time that there's leaders all over the pitch, but doesn't seem like it sometimes.
Well, there wasn't yesterday, was there, until he came on. That's for sure. Look, well, Luton can go to Middlesbrough and lose. They went to Middlesbrough and lost in Rob's first game. They went to Middlesbrough and lost to the time that we went before that, when Harry Cornick scored the consolation that day in the 96th minute. Middlesbrough are a good side. At home against Luton, they're probably going to win a lot more than 5 out of 10. That's fine. What's not fine is surrendering. And that's what they did. They surrendered for 20 minutes, 25 minutes, or at least that's the perception that I and many that travelled got from sitting there in the stands having to endure that. The perception was they waved a white flag and gave in. And that can never be the perception at this football club ever again. That has to stop right now. And if it doesn't stop, then we need to find people who will stop it. Now, whether that's the manager or whether that's players or other people at the football club, that cannot ever, 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 ever happen again. That's for absolute sure. So now we need a discussion, Jimbo. Where do we go from here? So after the game, the players trudge over, which was good. It's the very least they owed us was an apology for that. That's the very least that they did. Most of them had their tail between their legs. I wouldn't have expected any different. And Rob came over, clapped, took the abuse that I just mentioned a moment ago, and waved. Talking to people in the stands around me and on the concourse afterwards, we were all pretty certain we'd just seen our manager wave goodbye to us there and then. So a stint that started at Middlesbrough with a Jordan Clark goal seemingly looked like it finished at Middlesbrough, with the irony of a Jordan Clark goal in the game. Before we talk about Rob, because there is a discussion to be had here, it's got to be had, let's hear from the man himself. This is his reaction after the game to the club's social channels.
Quite numb to the game right now at the moment. My main concern is the supporters, and they're the most important people at any football club. I said that when I first came in, and I mean that. They've all travelled really early this morning, a long, long way, or come up last night and spent loads of money on coming up here. And I want to apologise to them. I feel for them. I feel their pain. It's not good enough. And then it's just one of those days. It's difficult. Almost want the ground to be able to swallow you up. It was tough. Made some more changes to try and block things up more, and that was it. But look, the most important thing right now is the club. The football club, and I love this club. We've had 2 amazing years here, amazing years, and we've had highs that we never thought maybe many people never thought we'd experience. But the last thing I want is to be a divisive figure. You know, I want what's right for this football club, and I love it in everyone here, including you guys. You know, but yeah, I just feel really disappointed today. I'm really disappointed for the supporters who have given us everything, and as I say, those are my main concerns right now.
So that's the thoughts of Rob after the game. Jimbo, listening to that and the Three Counties interview, where he said similar things, although once again he blamed himself for the team changes. Stop doing it, Rob. If you give a footballer an excuse, I don't know enough about football, but I know one thing: if you give a footballer an excuse, he'll pick it up and he'll run 100 million miles with the sodding thing, and that's what they're doing. And they're throwing you under a bus, and it's not good. Stop giving them that escape route, for Christ's sake. But I thought we would be, having heard that interview, I thought we'd be sitting here talking about Rob Edwards having left. Now, he might well do. He might still do. We don't know. But I thought, we're recording this as we always do, circa 8 p.m. on a Sunday night. I thought, having heard that interview, that was the last I'll have seen of Rob Edwards, and we would be talking about his period in charge and everything else. That's not the case. At the time of recording, he is still Luton Town manager. So we have two questions. Firstly, is he the right man for the job? And it's probably wrong for me to ask you that, because you have to go and talk to him, or potentially have to talk to him every Friday. So I'll answer that part. If he is the right man for the job, what can he do from here on in to ensure yesterday doesn't happen again? So I'll do the first bit, and you can come on to the second bit. I don't know, is the answer. I know I want him to stay. I really want Rob to stay. I want Rob to be the man to turn this around. But I only want Rob to be the man to turn this around. One, if he thinks he can turn this around. And two, if he's got the motivation and the will and the desire to turn it around. Because I'm seeing a broken man, and I'm starting to get a bit worried from a humane perspective. If he wasn't quitting in that interview yesterday, they should have been nowhere near the media yesterday. They should have sent Richie Kyle out or Paul Trollope out. A couple of one-word answers and then fuck off and let's all go home. Because they keep putting this guy in front of the media to answer all the questions. And he looks worse, and he looks worse, and he looks worse each time he does it. Now, if he's not enjoying the job, and hell, if I was managing that and they're throwing me under the bus like they threw him under the bus yesterday, I wouldn't be enjoying it. And the job becomes a chore, then I don't think I want Rob as manager anymore. Because when I do my own job and it becomes a chore, I don't enjoy it. And it becomes a bind, and people will pick up on body language, particularly of him, the leader, and they'll pick up on that. However, we've got an international break. If they say to him, go away for a week, we're not going to do much training. We've got too many people going away. Even the people that are there are just going to be like recovering and making sure they're not injured and anything like that. They're not going to prepare for Hull until next Monday at the very earliest. So I'd say to him, sod off on holiday, go and get some sun on your back, go away, come back refreshed, recharged. And if you're ready to go again, and you're ready to be the man to lead us with that positive energy that we love about him, with a clear mind of where we can go, what we can do, and how we can do it, then I want Rob as our manager. For two reasons. One, because of the affinity that he's built up with us. As I said earlier, he gave me the best days of a takeout aside family activities, the best days of my life, right? The Wembley day, the Sunderland night, the 2 Watford nights, the Everton win, that incredible evening against Liverpool, and all of the others that we've all experienced together. And I'm not ready for that to finish, and there can still be more of those as long as Rob has the will, the desire, and the energy to go through and do this again. Now, if he doesn't, that's absolutely fine, right? I'll love the guy. He'll leave with my greatest respects. But for your own well-being here, Rob, only carry on in this job if you're 100% energized that you can do it, because I'm starting to get really, really worried about his body language and everything else. And no job bigger than a person's health, right? And I don't want it to turn any more toxic than what it does. I still believe he can turn this around. I still believe he's got a squad that is capable of performing an awful lot better than it is. But I'm worried about the man, really. And that means more to me than whether he's still the manager or not. So I want Rob to stay. I want Rob to turn it around, but he has to want to do that.
Yeah, I mean, I see where you're coming from, and we speak all the time. Me and you, we're in here most all the time. We're talking to each other on the phone and blah blah. And you're saying this, it comes from a place of care, and I get that. I see this being said a lot from people, and I feel uncomfortable about people talking about how he looks or his mental health and stuff like that, because you don't know. I mean, I see him more than most people. I get up close more than most people, I mean. And he's always pleasant, always tries to tell the truth and be honest. Sometimes maybe that's a fault. Maybe he should not be that honest. But I see a man that's, he says he loves the club, and I've got no reason to not believe him. And I say the reason why I think this is being said is because he's gutted about what's happening. He had the expectation they'd be better. We had the expectation he'd be better. And this constant boom and bust, really, like one step forward, two steps back sort of stuff. And yeah, I think that gets to him. I think that the injury crisis has been hard. It's been virtually the entire year, the injury crisis. And we've spoken about it before, and this is just a hypothesis, so I don't want people to take my word for it. I've got no inside information on it. But what if there's trauma from what happened with Tom twice? What if there is? Maybe that's a thing that's happened. Maybe it isn't. I'm just saying that, got to consider that a possibility, which also loops back to why I can't be doing with anybody that wants to slag him off in the way that they have. Criticise, fine, but calling him horrific names, I'm not on board with that at all. This is a man that's done those things, the greatest days. He's had to deal with some of the worst things as well. And maybe he comes out to all these press conferences, maybe it's him. He wants to front up, he wants to be the leader. Maybe he takes too much on. Maybe he does. He's a young man. He's 1 year younger than me. That would affect me. Let's be honest. People out there, that would affect you. It would. If it was just that would affect you. If it was getting relegated because you've achieved the pinnacle of your profession and getting to the top flight where you want to manage, and then you get relegated. And arguably you get relegated because you were threadbare because of an injury crisis. That's my belief anyway. I think we've spoken about this many times. And then you come into the Championship where you've had success before, and it's not going right. And it's not going right for some of the reasons we've suggested in this podcast. It has gone right sometimes. Go back to the previous podcast. But it's the ones where it goes so drastically wrong like this, it's bad. It's really bad. And so I feel slightly uncomfortable about that, because I wouldn't say, I'm friendly with Rob, but I wouldn't say I know him. I can't. He's a football manager. I speak to him in press conferences, that sort of thing. He looks gutted. Yes, he does. But I don't want to speculate about that sort of stuff. But if it is a problem, then I agree with you. And I think that's probably the best solution. Now, by the time this comes out, it may be a moot point anyway. Maybe a decision has been made. But I'd be happy with that. Go away for a bit, spend time with the family, and then come back, see how it's sitting, and make a decision then. I think I'm happy with that. I hadn't considered it. I'm happy with that.
Ultimately, the manager of Luton Town Football Club needs to be energised, because these players need fucking hell, they need someone to energise them quite clearly, because they're not capable, with the exception of the 2 or 3 that we've said, they're not capable of energising themselves, it seems. I mean, going all that way, seeing 700 or 800 Luton fans that had to get out of bed at 5 o'clock in the morning, get out of their house at 6 o'clock just to get up there. If that's not motivation enough, or as I said before the game, if you can't put perspective on it when on a day of this weekend in particular, and that can't make you give of your best, then when can it? So the manager of Luton Town needs to be energised. Now, if Rob can find that energy again, or has that energy and can show it, then absolutely, I'm fine with it. The alternatives aren't great.
No, they're not.
And I don't necessarily always criticise the board here. Some of it because obviously I do have to work with some of them in my role with the trust, but that's not to say that a lot of the stuff that I say most of the stuff I say on this podcast, I wouldn't say to their faces. Their record of employing managers is pathetic. I'm not gonna skirt around the bush. They made 4 cock-ups before we got out of the conference. Then they replaced John Still. To be fair, Nathan Jones, really good appointment. Fantastic appointment in every which way. He was the perfect man at the perfect time. Did so much for this football club. Then they replaced him with another absolute bonehead. All right. They got themselves into such a shenanigans that they had to go and send an SOS out to the man who done the dirty on them. Gone and got him, and then from there they've gone and got Rob. Really good appointment. Probably an obvious appointment. I think it was I think he was the outstanding candidate. I know they interviewed 3, but he was the outstanding candidate purely because
It was on paper for me, and I never thought they'd go for him. We've spoken about this before on record on this podcast. I never thought they'd go for him because he was Watford, and they proved me wrong on that. I mean, they proved me wrong getting Nathan Jones back. So, yes, it's been patchy, really patchy.
they've employed 7 or 8 managers and they've got 2 right. So you've got a 25% hit record. So I believe that they've learned from their mistakes. I'll absolutely say that. I think they're much better at picking a manager or much more information available to them than when they replaced Mick Harford, the first one that they replaced. I'll say that much for them. And the candidates and the club itself will be open to bigger and better candidates were we to need a new manager. But how high do the outside world see Luton from a management point of view? Do people see, I mean, as a Luton fan, as a deluded Luton fan, which sometimes I am, I try to be as respectful and as reflective and as balanced as I can be on this podcast, because I try and represent the views of taking emotion out of the equation, which everyone who comes up to me seems to appreciate, and that's what I try and do. I've struggled here because I'm still emotional from yesterday, and I apologise if I've offended anyone, apart from certain players who I was more than happy to. But if you're a manager that Luton would want to appoint, are we a big club? Because Luton fans say, well, we've just been relegated out of the Premier League, we've got cash coming out of our arses, and we can go and get anyone who we want because we've literally just come out of the Premier League. And that's fine. That's one view. I don't agree with it, but that's a view that's out there, and that's absolutely fine. But is it the real view, or are Luton just a small club, even by Championship level, that probably aren't going to get back to the Premier League in a hurry? And as a manager, would I want to potentially damage my reputation if the expectation is that you can't fail and then you do fail? Do I need to put myself through that? Because whoever replaces Rob, we can't go into a situation where if Rob leaves, we can't go into a situation where we can employ like Graham Jones or like Nathan Jones, where it's their first job. I don't think we can do that. I think it would need to be someone of experience. But then we're going to have to employ someone with a style of football that potentially incorporates playing 3 at the back, because assuming that they don't get employed until the latter end of the international break at the earliest, which would be the earliest if you go down a rigorous interview process, it's not going to be, and it might be a case where they have to ask Mick to do a game or 2 or whatever, so it's going to be right in the middle of a run of games, so they're not going to have a chance on the training ground to change the formation. It also has to be a manager that can incorporate God knows how many supposed ball-playing central midfielders, but none that can actually tackle, apart from Walsh, who can't do it particularly well. So we're basically looking for a manager who can play possession-based football to get the best out of this squad. Bearing in mind we've got another one coming in January, who again is supposedly good on the ball, runs a lot in midfield, to add to the collection of them that we've got. And we haven't got no pace in this side. So does a manager worth his salt look at that and think, cool, that's a really good proposition? Or do the managers that are worth their salt think, you know what, I'm not sure I need that hassle. I'm not sure I can succeed to the levels that people think I can succeed as quickly as people would want me to succeed at. In which case, am I better off waiting for another job or staying where I am?
I mean, at the risk of getting Creus out of my arse, some of those things can all exist at the same time. And I think the lure of the Premier League in this country, worldwide, really. I mean, I criticise them for the propaganda they put out against most of the time, but what they have done is built a massive brand that is loved the world over. So the lure of that and the possibility of getting Luton back up there would attract a lot of people, I think. But judging by previous appointments, since Nathan, they're going for the young, hungry new manager. Now, I think you're probably right also that you can't go for a first-time manager. So that narrows the pool down a bit, doesn't it? But I think that's probably still in Luton's price bracket. I think also what you said, they're a small fish. They are. The stadium dictates that. Getting to the Premier League doesn't. That's, lots of Swindon played in the Premier League. I mean, not in these days, but, did.
I'm glad you mentioned the stadium there, because when Rob leaves, if it's before we go into the new stadium, the new manager will be given the project to lead us into the new stadium, right? This is not an interim until the summer. That's not how they work. They work with a long-termism approach, and absolutely right that they do that, which therefore part of the project. That's why I don't think it can be an inexperienced person.
No, I make you right there. I don't think it can be. But then I don't think that they'll go for some old warhorse that has a track record of keeping teams up.
Nor should they do that.
No, I don't think that would be right.
How many? If you take those two criteria out of the equation, how many genuinely good candidates does that leave you with? And are they going to be genuinely better than what we've got? Because if we're only replacing like for like, we might as well keep what we've got. You don't replace something you don't replace something old with the old version of it. You replace it with the newer version. If it's a mobile phone, for example, you're going to get the latest model, don't you? How many genuine candidates are there out there that supersede Rob Edwards with the criteria that we believe that we're falling from? Are there many? Because I look on social media. I shouldn't, but I do. I have to. It's part of my role within the trust. And the people that are out there that want Rob Edwards to leave, whether they want Rob Edwards to leave from a humane point of view or because they don't like his tactics or whatever, I would say 60 or 70% of them at the minute are of get Mark Robins in. I mean, pretty sure 18 months ago, those two lined up on the sidelines at Wembley and Rob beat Mark, but that by the by. That doesn't strike me as a long-termism. I mean, I don't know how old the guy is, but he's got to be in his mid-50s because he was playing for United in 1990 when Fergie nearly got sacked. That's 34 years ago, and he wasn't 5 years old when he did that, was he? So he's got to be in his mid-50s. So has he got a long-termism in him? I'm not sure. I would wager, based on the age of Nathan, to a lesser extent Graham Jones, he wasn't really old, was he? He would have been, late 40s? And certainly Rob took over when he was 39, 40, just coming up to 40. He was a month away from his 40th birthday. The age structure that they're looking at is early 40s. So that would take Mark Robins out of the equation anyway. But I look at it, I don't genuinely see too much.
No, I agree with you. On the Robins one, I'd be very surprised. I think people see he's an obvious candidate in the sense that he's done wonders with Coventry. They didn't want him to leave, blah, blah, blah. Fair enough, you can see that. But when has Luton ever signed the big candidate that's currently available? It's not happened, has it? All of these managers have come out of left field somewhat. Since John Still. I mean, John Still was probably the best man they could possibly get in the non-league, judging by his track record. And they prized him away from Dagenham for that. But everyone else has been the criteria that we've already just set out. So I'd be very surprised. I mean, for me, I understand that, emotions run high, and there are people that have wanted Edwards out, from 5 minutes into the first game. And you can't change those people's minds. And I'm not going to bother even trying now. I think there's one obvious point in the season where if it's going so drastically wrong, you change the manager. And that'll be before the transfer window. You give them the transfer window and half the season to stamp their authority on it.
But you only give them the transfer window if you're going to spend money in the transfer window. And I understand the reason why we didn't bring in the level of players that people thought that they would. We mentioned it all at the time. They went for their targets. They didn't get them, particularly in the summer window, not January. No one did business in January. They were all shit scared of the PSR, points deductions and all of that. We did that at the time. But and it might be that they're going to invest in January, and that was the plan all along. Get to January, reinvest, even though they've repeatedly said it's a horrible month to do business in. And we're kind of second guessing that. But if they're not going to spend in the January transfer window, it doesn't really matter if you give the manager the January transfer window or not, does it? Other than the fact it allows him to offload some that he doesn't want. And I would imagine there'll be quite a few of those because we stockpiled an awful lot of the same player. We have. That's just how it is.
It's another thing that cuts down the candidate pool, though. If you
Agreed.
are asking for a manager and you say, well, resources are tight, we haven't got them to give you, you've got to perform a miracle.
And this was the other reason why I'm happy with Rob, because he knows what he's got. Yes, he's got to get an awful lot more out of it. And I think we've come to the stage, and we'll come on to what he can do if he's the manager in a second. We come on to the stage where he has to go down a different personnel route now. That's clearly obvious. Luton and Coventry are in a similar position in the league table, right? I would wager from the outside world, Coventry are perceived as a bigger club than Luton, won the FA Cup in 1987, blah, blah, however many years in the top flight, blah, 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 blah. Here are the candidates, according to the bookmakers, the favourites for the Coventry job right now. Frank Lampard's the odds-on favourite.
For God's sake.
Robbie,
no.
Robbie Keane. Now, that might be former player.
That's a sentimental
former player bias. Matt Bloomfield, currently the Wycombe manager. Lee Carsley is about to finish his role with England, but he's still England under-21 manager. England under-21 manager to Luton, I'm not seeing that. Stephen Schumacher, former Plymouth manager, recently sacked at Stoke. He's the fifth favourite. Nicky Butts, 16-1. I think he's just recently left his job at Salford, hasn't he? So presumably he's a free agent. Some fella called Rob Edwards is in the market, but that's just there as an anomaly. Alan Sheehan, 20-1.
He's being
linked.
outed as...
I've seen that, but that would be a first job. He's currently assistant manager at Swansea, isn't he?
He's being touted as Coventry, the next Coventry boss.
Yeah, 20-1 to be the next Coventry boss. David Wagner just recently got sacked from Norwich. Couldn't get Norwich. Big spend in Norwich out of the Championship. Ruben Selles, who is the Reading manager, who, okay, you might well get him out of Reading rather quickly because of the financial mess that they're in. Don't know who Reece Carr is. I think he's the guy who took over from Mark Robbins in the interim at Coventry, so he's automatically going to be in the betting list. Alex Neil, 40-1, former Stoke manager. David Moyes, I mean, there is no chance of David Moyes coming to managing Luton, let me tell you. Liam Rosenior, currently managing Strasbourg in France, who, were we to make a managerial change, I'll get the number and get on the dog and bone to him straight away, because he's the perfect candidate in terms of age profile, long-term project and everything else. That's for another day. And the other ones on this list, Dean Smith, Gareth Southgate, Graham Potter. We've got no chance of getting those three even if we wanted them.
Jesus Christ.
The people out there, it's the phrase, what was the phrase Richard Money said? Be careful what you wish for or something. Well, I was quite happy to wish for better than you, Dickie, but I think that's the phrase here. Be careful what you wish for. Those names are not particularly appealing, with the exception of Liam Rosenior, and he's currently in a job in France. Is he suddenly going to come back to England? I don't know. They're not appealing. Or they're not appealing to me anyway. They might appeal to some others, but a lot of those names I've just read out, you can wipe them off the board because they're unrealistic.
This is what I've seen actually Coventry fans saying now, because they're gutted. They're gutted that Robbins has gone. They didn't want him,
you would be.
They didn't want him to go, and they're furious at the hierarchy of Coventry City. So, there is precedence there. I think there's a big thing which isn't often discussed, and it's the cult of the manager and how much he can actually do. Yet at the same breath, people will say, but once the players cross the white line, it's all up to them. But then the players lose 5-1 and it's all the manager's fault. As we've described in this podcast, it's not all that. There's far more nuances into that. I mean, for another example, you're talking about a lot of the time, Edwards talks about ruthlessness in both boxes. We've got to be more ruthless. So yeah, that against Middlesbrough says not very ruthless in defence. But at the other end, I've asked him numerous times, how can you get the players to stick it in the onion bag, have a shot, blah, 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 when they're not? If it were that easy, everybody would do it, as is winning. If winning and success were that easy, everybody would do it. It's the little bit of chemistry, the little bit of magic that is very hard to bottle. And so it isn't always the manager's fault, these things. And now it's got to this point, and I think probably his words have sort of made people think, well, maybe that's goodbye and the wave. For me, I don't know. You could interpret it that, and you could also, I'm just playing devil's advocate, you could interpret it as, I'm very sorry, hands up, very sorry, bye. But the words then add to it, don't they? So who knows?
Yeah, he raised his hands and then he waved. Now, he could have been waving at someone he knew in the crowd, for all I know. But he'd also know the situation, and he still waved. I thought he was waving goodbye to the club. Clearly, that's not the case because he hasn't left, and we're now 30 hours after the full-time whistle or whatever. Don't take 30 hours for that to happen.
But I mean,
Now
talking about this, he's still managing. If that happens, we'll do another podcast, and that's another discussion.
Yeah.
But
so let's finish this podcast then with what can he do now? Right. Well, the first thing you need to do, Rob, is you need to get tough. You're a nice bloke. Too nice, possibly. I don't work with you behind closed doors. Maybe behind closed doors you're a bit tougher, and I'm being harsh here. But from the outside world, you need to get tough now, because you keep on saying things like we need to learn from our mistakes. Well, newsflash, they're not. So no, we're 15 games into the season, they're making the same mistakes, and it's the same people. I've called them out in this podcast. Not so much Holmes. That was the first time he's done it. But the others that we've called out in this podcast have been doing it all season. It's time to find someone else in those positions. Now, you're handicapped in defence at the moment. Hopefully, by the time the international break's done, Reece Burke's back. That will certainly help matters, because Reece Burke's the best defender this football club's got. This football club's got, and that's what we need right now, defenders. You need to stop giving them excuses. Now, I don't expect you to come out and throw them under the bus in press conferences or anything like that, but just come out and say, we did not play very well today. We did not defend very well today. We did not attack very well today. Whatever the situation is, don't come out and with all this silly nonsense. Oh, my team changes and it wasn't on me. It was all on me. And keep taking the can for them. Because the more you keep taking the can for them, the more they'll pile on the petrol and start lighting the matches, because they're throwing you under the bus, and none of us want to see that. So there's the first thing. Get tough. Start dropping these players. If they're not capable of doing it or aren't doing it, well, they must be capable of doing it, because we wouldn't have signed them. If they're not doing it, out your pop, or find someone who can, and we'll keep on doing this cycle until we get to the person who can, because someone must be able to do it. They've got enough players. They're not short players. The other question I would like to ask Rob is what is actually happening with Marvelous Nakamba? Now, he told you in a pre-match press conference that he can't play 3 games in 90 minutes. Now, I wouldn't expect 31-year-old who's just been out for 9 months to be able to play 3 games in 90 minutes. I wouldn't expect that. However, we've played 6 games since the last international break. He started all of 0 of them. Now, in your pre-match press conference, you flagged up pretty much the same attacking numbers that we flagged up in the preview for this game, about how Middlesbrough's offensive skills were to the level that they were. So I naturally assumed that Marvelous Nakamba would start this game. He didn't, nor did any defensive midfielder or midfielder with defensive instincts whatsoever. The other one, for example, would be Tom Krause. Didn't start either. And Finn Azaz absolutely killed us. Now, that might just be a cloudy mind situation, and if he goes off on holiday, has a week away, forgets football for 7 days and comes back refreshed and rejuvenated, and those decisions get made. But are we in a situation where we've got a problem with Marvellous? Because if he pisses off to Zimbabwe and plays 2 games, that would tell me that he's out of favour. Well, why is he out of favour when every single team goes right through the middle of our pitch long term? Can he no longer play for us? In which case we need to find a replacement. That might be Lamine Darboe, who's coming in January. If not, we need to find one right now.
Fan Darboe's the Coventry guy.
No, it's Dabo as well. Don't worry. He's Lamine Fan Dabo. Yeah, he's a three name man. If not, what's Pelirada Kampanzu got to do to get into this side? Is he the answer? No, but he was 2 years ago, and he's certainly got legs, and I'm pretty sure he could have chased Hazaz around the pitch yesterday, certainly in a much better way, and we was kind of advocating for Shandon to come in, but not to chase the playmaker around, to be our own playmaker. Where are we in that situation? There's an obvious replacement, right? He's standing right there. He's Pelirada Kampanzu. He's the energy of this football team. He's the life beat of this club. We need energy. We're dying for energy. We're dying for some pride. And Pelly's got it. He loves this football club as much as you do, Rob. He is this football club. Unleash him. Because he can't do no worse than than that pathetic effort yesterday.
It's got to be, here's some harsh lessons, lads. That's not good enough. Out you come. And who have you got available? Well, you've got Pelly. You know, the fans love him. We all know his limitations in terms of foot on the ball. But is he athletic? Yeah. So he can do that.
Is he proud?
Yeah.
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 Will he fight? You better believe he'll fight.
Yeah. And yet, I take your point about Nakamba. You know, people always ask, why are you not asking about X, Y, and Z? You're like, if they're injured, we'll ask about when they're coming back. If they're not playing, well, I did ask about Nakamba, why is he not playing? And that was the answer. He can't play 90 minutes in a week, which is fair enough. And then he wasn't playing some more. There's only so many times you can ask about somebody who's done nothing so far. But I think now is probably a legitimate question. You know, what is he right? Is he not back? So fitness, can he not, does that mean he can't train as well? Or what is it? Because,
well, if he goes away and plays 2 games for Zimbabwe, you're well within your rights next Friday ahead of that Hull City game. If Rob is in charge for that game, you're well within your rights to say, how's he played 2 games for Zimbabwe and hasn't started a single game in your last 6? To me, that's a legitimate question. Now, whether you get a straight bat answer or you don't generally get straight bat answers from Rob, so you'll probably get the genuine one. I think that's a fair enough question. Now, if he goes away with Zimbabwe and he doesn't play, then you know he's injured.
Yeah. It is now. And sometimes it's about timing. The timing's right on that question. Maybe we have to have the discussion about the 3 centre halves in the team working.
Well, we don't have to have that for very long.
We don't have to. We've seen how it's been very good when they've been forced to do it. So there's that conundrum to solve. People won't want to hear it, and there's 5 changes to try and deal with this. Now, it didn't work again, but the 3-game week, the last one being an away game, got absolutely battered twice in a row. Is that a problem?
We didn't lose yesterday because it was the 3rd game in a week. We didn't lose yesterday because we were knackered. We didn't.
No. It was lost because people didn't do their jobs properly. But there is a pattern there, isn't there?
Oh, absolutely.
Something to be investigated.
And this goes long behind Rob. This was a Nathan thing. It was a Graham Jones thing. Not so much a Mick Harford thing, but that was because you had momentum and you were on a roll in League One, and we were superior to a lot of teams in League One. We're talking about the Championship, where we're not superior to too many sides. So when we come up against the 3rd one, and that's fair enough. The other question, which might not be a Rob thing, and you've asked this question and you've been answered it and things, but it's not going away, is what is the injury situation down to? Because this is gone on too long now. Now, if they know the answer, they probably fix it. So in many ways, it's a moot point. But we are never fit. Even when we're fit, we're not fit. If that makes sense. Even when we're fit, after 70 minutes, we start tiring. We have players going down. And the last 20 minutes are what you between your fingers and hope that the opposition don't shoot sort of thing. We start seasons badly. Again, this is not a Rob thing. This happened under Nathan as well. Look where we were when Nathan dumped us for the second time. We were nowhere. 10th, 11th or whatever we were. A third of the way into the season. Now, we start off to Slovenia, which I'm sure is a really lovely place. I'm sure it's a fantastic place. I'd love to go for Slovenia for a week to work. Absolutely fantastic. But the results coming back from it don't seem to have the reflection that they should do, because we never start the season well. Should we go somewhere else? Should we do something else? I kind of come into the last two seasons. Last season was understandable because we couldn't use Kenilworth Road. We didn't have enough pre-season friendlies for me. Proper pre-season friendlies, not that silly kickabout in Slovenia. You know, the one that Chong ended up headbutting the stairs, and they're no use to man or beast. They don't care. We don't care. It's literally just run around and kick a football around. Proper pre-season friendlies. We don't seem to have enough of them. You know, we had the Celta Vigo one, got given the run around in that, and then it was straight into Burnley. The rest of them, what did we gain from going to Dundee United? I know they had our keeper and all of that. What did we really gain on the football pitch from going to Dundee United? We only drew 2-2 against a Scottish Premier League team who ain't even a Celtic, a Rangers or an Aberdeen. Didn't gain a lot from that. We had a behind closed doors game against the Danish lot whose name I've forgotten. Again, behind closed doors, you don't really gain an awful lot from this. Our pre-seasons, and I would imagine Rob's involved in some of this, but I would imagine some of it's financial and commercial deals and everything else. They set us off on the wrong foot for me, because we take until this current international break before we start playing football. And I'm not reacting to yesterday here. This was this season. This was last season. Again, last season we were building the Bobbers stand. Kenilworth Road was out of use. We could only play those two friendlies in Bochum. That was literally all that was open to us. And, you know, that's unfortunate. But that was the byproduct of promotion. The season before, when we got promoted, as I've just mentioned, we were 10th in the World Cup. The season before that, under Nathan, the first season back from COVID, we did really well against Peterborough, but then it was all of a grind until we picked up speed again in the second half of the season. This is a regular situation. How many more of these are we going to have? Because you can do yourself a favour by being up with the pace, so that when a bad run comes, and you're going to have a bad run in a 46-game schedule where you're playing boom, 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 it's not as significant. Because the next bad run is going to put us in a relegation threat. We're not there yet. Again, we beat Hull at home. We can go up to 16th. We're not there yet, but we're not a million miles. You lose against Hull and you don't get anything from Leeds and Norwich, and the teams around us do, and then all of a sudden you are starting to lose track of the pace. But that's a regular thing for me. We start seasons so slowly. So if Rob is the man long term, he can look into that and fix that. Not now, but by the time it comes around. And this injury situation, I was on the understanding that he was going to sign robust players in the summer. And I'm sure they tried. But ultimately, they brought in Shandon Baptiste, injury prone. Liam Walsh, literally just come off a contract with Swansea because he's injury prone. We've not signed anyone in my category of robust. So where is the thinking with it? Now, obviously, they cost money and we might not have had money and things like this and that. But everyone who's here, they never seem fit. And every single press conference you go to, you're told of someone else who can't train. What the fuck's going on? How are we expected to beat these sides when we can't match them for physicality and athleticism? Football is an athletic game now. It's no longer back in the day where you could have a few pints, George Best style, and get away with it on a Saturday. You have to have robust athletes that don't break down. And we're littered with unrobust athletes that do break down and currently haven't got the heart for it either, based on yesterday's evidence.
Yeah, I mean, it's not something I can give you the answer for, but maybe
it's something that Rob has to, or whoever has to look at.
But also, think about how exasperated you are in that answer just there, with that question you've just posed, and add that into why Rob Edwards is feeling bad, because he's had this since February. Not being able to pick a team. Maybe some of them aren't training. Players that were injury prone, Baptiste, but they signed Mads Andersen, was as solid as a rock for Barnsley. What's he played? 5 minutes for Luton, keeps getting injured. It is mental. I have asked it back in the Premier League days when it was going. So
do the people above Rob need to come to the party a little bit more here then and sort this situation out? Because, like you say, we signed Mads Andersen and the geezer looked like a Trojan. Comes here and he's as brittle as they come. Even when he comes on the pitch, when he's supposedly fit, 10 minutes later he's trotted off again at Plymouth. We've got more staff than you can shake a stick at. And I understand that football clubs these days have to have an awful lot of staff. It's a multi-million-pound operation. It's no longer just have a quick massage and off you go. It's nutrition and it's sports science and it's all this, that and the other. But this has been a constant for a long, long time. Surely it's someone's responsibility. And I don't think it is Rob's responsibility. Rob's responsibility is to coach the team on the training pitch. And if he hasn't got the players on the training pitch to coach, then that's not necessarily down to it. But it's got to be someone at the football club's responsibility to look into why we keep getting injured players and stop these injuries coming along. Because I've used this phrase so many times and I'm pig sick of using it, but he's constantly going into a game of poker with Uno cards. I mean, look at yesterday. That Middlesbrough front four were fast, vibrant, dynamic, quick, clever, natural footballers. Where are ours?
Well, I think that's a question of money, isn't it? Quick costs money, goals cost money.
Okay, that's fair enough. Doak's on loan from Liverpool. Where's our loan signings from the Premier League?
Well, they tried, didn't they? They wanted Cannon from Leicester, and he went to Stoke.
Didn't try hard enough, though, did they? Because they didn't get one.
This is the thing, though. It's not only up to Luton saying, we really want you. He's got to want to come.
But that was the last day of the transfer window, Jimbo. The fucking thing opens in the middle of June.
Mm.
You knew you were losing Ross Barkley on the 1st of July. You knew it. You might not have known which club you were selling him to, but you knew that when he could be sold for £5 million that you were selling him. Where was the thought behind replacing him?
I understand that people are saying that, and I think it's a valid question that you won't get an answer to because we don't know who they're after. We don't even know the fees they go for. And that won't change because I understand the reasoning behind it.
Yeah, that's the way
reason
they
behind
work.
it. They've got to try and compete. To go back one of your other questions, Luton are a small fish in this pond. They've got to try and compete against Middlesbrough, who are vastly more rich, so they can afford those front four players that you talk about. They've got to try and find different ways, which is why they employ Jay Sotchich to try and do the stats analysis. And I applaud all that. And when he first came in, we did a big piece on it. We did, yes, great. It's not always going to work.
No, it's not. But if you're not giving your manager the tools to do his job with, how can you really expect your manager to do his job?
I mean, I think it's a legitimate question that people will have.
Ultimately, his job is to coach the players. Now, if he hasn't got players on the training pitch to coach, that's not necessarily through any fault of his own. And if they've not given him the tools to coach in the first place, again, I repeat myself, he's going into battle in a game of poker with Uno cards. And he's coming out, funnily enough, he's first off the poker table because they're not letting him play.
Yeah. Or it could be that he's after a profile of player that isn't currently needed in what the situation we find him. He had the expectation, as we all did, that they'd be challenging for promotion. And he played pretty attacking, football, which is what he wanted to do. And that's not happened. And now you find yourself in the trenches. You need a different type of player. And they don't have those. Well, they do. And he's not playing. We've spoken about that already. So, yeah, there's a lot of it's not one reason, and to say it's to come back to the whole point and put an umbrella over it, it's not to just go, it's all Rob's fault. It's not.
No, it's not. It's a collective thing. It's top to bottom. And bottom yesterday was not acceptable at all. Yeah, we don't ever want to see that again. I don't want to sit here and call players out, but I am not sitting there and accepting. I'm not sitting there. I'm not having my alarm go off at 5 o'clock in the morning, along with a friend of mine who drove. Thankfully, he drove. Going all that way, paying all of that money, making all of that sacrifice, and sitting there and watching that, and not coming on here and calling it out. I'm not here to offer emotional, unbalanced opinions. I'm here to offer an honest opinion, and I'm still livid from yesterday, so I probably was a little bit unbalanced and emotional this time, but I'll stand by what I said. That is not acceptable, and we do not want to see it ever again. And if you think it is, the door, I'll show you the way.
No, I think it is reasonable. I don't think it. What's unreasonable is complete, utter vitriol. I think is. I don't think that helps anybody. It also doesn't help anybody if there's if that carries on. Let's say Edward stays, then getting on players' backs is not going to change the situation. So somewhere along the lines, people have got to say, well, we're going to try and support these boys to improve the situation. And I get that that's a hard situation it's a hard square to circle, because they've got to play well for you to be happy, and it doesn't work like that all the time. But I think somewhere along the line, the people that are slagging him off to such a degree, maybe the people near them need to say, wind your fucking neck in, that sort of thing. I don't know. I don't sit in with the fans. I sit over in the press box. So I don't know. It's not for me to say. It's probably one for you guys to have out between yourselves, I think. But I know for sure it won't help.
No, it really won't. I actually thought that they got supported yesterday a lot more than they deserved to be supported. It was only at the end where the vitriol came. Yeah, there was some people joining in with that silly chant, you're getting sacked in the morning, that Middlesbrough fans started. That kind of thing doesn't really help either. But yeah, I can understand why they were pissed off at that point. But yeah, the real nasty vitriol, it was only after the game when they came over. Again, you're right, it doesn't serve any purpose. And if we can cut that out, that would be great. That is pretty much it for this episode of the podcast. Probably not the most enjoyable one that you've listened to, certainly not the most enjoyable one that we've recorded, but one that had to be recorded and things that had to be said and thoughts that we had to get off our chest.
And maybe some of it's not relevant now. We don't know. This is Sunday night. Who knows what Monday brings? And if things change, then yeah, we'll do another one, won't we?
Yeah, if that situation does develop, we will be back with a reaction to whatever it is that happens over the coming week. We did kind of hint towards a power court rundown during this international break. The people that we are looking to come on and help us with that probably have this decision regarding Rob to make, so we'll leave them be. Power court can wait a little bit. And also the final plans are up in front of the council in December anyway. So let's get that through and then we'll do that. And if we can get someone in the meantime, then we will do. But I don't think
it doesn't make sense for us to keep promising it when there's bigger fish to fry, I think, at the moment.
There's more immediate things to, and we'll leave them be.
But it'll come.
Yep. It would. It's definitely, we're literally only putting it on the back burner. We're not cancelling it forever. Thanks for everyone who got their score predictions in. No one got Middlesbrough 5, Luton 1, thankfully. There were some of you that picked a Middlesbrough win. Probably not too surprising. And well done to you. You'll all get a point. We're on the status quo because you copied my answer. So still the same score as we were going into the Hull City game in a couple of weeks' time. As I say, the next podcast will be, well, if anything changes managerial-wise, we'll react to that. If not, the next one will be a preview for that Hull City game, which will be out early next week. It'll be out earlier because Jimbo and I are off to Spurs to large it up at a podcast awards.
Let's hope there's a ray of sunshine in between all of this.
I think if the judges have sat through an hour and a half of this and don't give us the award, they've got no heart, have they?
Well, yeah.
They've got no emotion to them. They're emotionless.
If nothing else, I'm going to drink that Spurs booze dry.
Could have done with it yesterday, I tell you, on the way home. Thanks very much for watching, listening, however it is you consume this podcast. It is a longer podcast. We've made a conscious effort to make it slightly longer than what we normally would do because this is a serious one. We're at a crossroads, really, and we had to go through all of the many options and journeys that we could possibly take. You've got the international break to consume it all, so if you break it down into 2 parts, that's up to you. But thanks either way for watching and listening. Get your comments in, whether you agree, whether you disagree. We'll try and action all of them, as we always do. Thanks also to the Barber Club and Lower Level in Luton for hosting our studio. Guys, we're actually going to be out of your hair for the next week or so, unless something's happened.
Pardon the pun.
Very much so, pardon the pun, indeed. Yep, but we really appreciate your support as always. To Sean Grant and the Wolfgang for our intro music, and to Ed Smith Creative for the designs that you see on set. Jimbo, I need a beer, mate.
So you go and get one.
Absolutely. From Jimbo and myself, don't ever display that again, Town. Come on, you atters.
For me, it's the people and the spirit of the people as well.
I love this town. I love this town. I love this town. You know what I love about this town is actually you. Everyone in it has got this massive soul.
We're Luton people, and that's what we care about.